You're listening to the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, your host, Ben Eagle. Please remember to subscribe to the show wherever you are listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, Ben Eagle. Today we're in Cornwall. We haven't been in Cornwall for quite a while, so it's nice to be heading west, just east of Truro, and I'm meeting egg producer Rebecca Tonks from St Ewe Free Range Eggs. The Tonks family has been at Ventomwyn Farm for more than 50 years, and in that time, 3 generations have made a living there. They started with dairy before taking on the challenge of free-range eggs from 1,500 hens initially in the 1980s, which had expanded to 13,000 birds by 2005. The dairy herd itself was sold in 2002 when the family started focusing on eggs solely. In 2007, they launched an egg packing business and the St Ewe Free Range Eggs brand. And in 2016, they installed an egg processing plant. So that gives you an idea of the expansion of this very exciting business. So this is a story of change, adaptation, but also growth. And today we're going to hear a little bit more about it from Rebecca. Rebecca, welcome to Meet the Farmers.
Hi, thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Let's talk about Cornwall first of all, because I love talking about Cornwall. Tell us a bit about your part of Cornwall and what it's like to live and work there.
So we're based in mid-Cornwall. It's generally incredibly wet, I have to say.
Especially at the moment.
No, today is a glorious day, which I love this time of year. The autumn is my favourite time of year. But no, it's a wonderful place to work. It is a long way from anywhere. So running a business from Cornwall is a challenge. But that said, the location outweighs all of that. And we have wonderful people who live here as well. And there's a real sense of community, which it is very special. And that makes my day.
Yeah, it's a very special part of the world, that's for sure. I love my trips down to Cornwall whenever I can do it. But let's talk about the business. Give us some history of the business from its early beginnings.
Yeah, so it was actually my grandfather that bought the farm back in 1967, and he was a captain in the Navy, so had no knowledge of farming whatsoever. My father was 17 then, and it was really my father that has that brought the farm into life, along with Granny, and they started a pedigree Jersey herd. Oh my gosh, what an experience! But Dad he's kind of self-taught. He learned about nutrition. What you put in is what you get out, and heat and breeding. So that side of the business and knowledge is incredibly valuable, and something that I have learnt over the years as well, and thoroughly enjoyed. So we had to make a decision with regards to the cows when milk quota was in play. It was costing an awful lot of money, putting a lot of hours into producing milk. We only had, our farm is a 70-acre farm. So unless we rented another farm and expanded the herd, we weren't, it was that time where you kind of go big or go home. So we went home. We diverted into poultry, and that actually earned some money. So we continued with that.
Yeah, I mean, I always find it amazing looking back at that time. That was sort of as in the early 2000s, late 90s. I mean, that was when my dad, for example, got out of dairy as well. I mean, there was a complete shift in the industry, wasn't there? And I think, and foot to mouth around about that time as well. I think it's easy to forget sometimes. I mean, it's within obviously the living memory and working memory of lots of farmers, but it is easy to forget just quite how tough a time that was. And like you say, it
Mhm.
was a time of, yeah, either get bigger, get niche, or do something else.
Yeah, yeah, and we were very lucky in Cornwall that we didn't have any foot and mouth outbreaks, but we actually sold the whole herd to one farmer in Penrith who did lose his herd to foot and mouth. And we're very, I think, very lucky to be able to sell the herd as a whole. Our girls had never seen snow before, so that was hilarious when they all moved up to Penrith. But yeah, it was a very traumatic time for a lot of farmers. So yeah, I think it's yeah something that we're yes we'll never ever forget. But also out of adversity becomes opportunity, and I think I applaud my parents for being so bold and being able to take a different tact and do something else. I think they're yeah, that was really amazing.
Yeah. But of course, the eggs were going for quite some time
Yep,
before you went solely into them.
yep,
So was it an obvious thing? I mean, it might not have been an obvious thing because it was quite a big step up
yeah.
after taking that decision.
Yeah, so we in the early 80s put up the kind of first hen house, and the encouragement and positivity around the egg market was certainly one to feel confident to invest in further. So we put up a couple more hen houses. I left the farm when I was 17 and went off and ran pubs of all things.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes,
wow.
for about 14 years, and it was on coming back to the farm. I'd got two little boys, and I really wanted to bring them up on the farm, not in a pub. And so yes, I think it was. Yes, I moved back home. Actually, got happily divorced, and we put up another hen house to make the farm viable for two families. And then and I brought up the boys on the farm, and it was really a very I feel very lucky to have been able to do that. And that was in 2004, and the egg market was very strong. There weren't very much in the way of regulation around free range eggs and so on then either. And then we were putting all this effort into beautiful eggs, sending them off on the back of a lorry and not really knowing where they're being sold. So we thought, well, why don't we? I'm quite arty as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought, well, I can create a brand and sell them. That's not a problem. So anyway, we went off down that road. We bought a second-hand grader. It was an amazing feat of engineering, a 7-lane Moba grader, which we thought was amazing. But looking back now, it was just a tiny little thing.
Yeah, but it's big
Um,
at the time.
Yes, yes, and yeah, well, that's how we started, and we went line accredited. So that meant that we could sell into the supermarkets because talking initially to Asda and Sainsbury's, the local food, the kind of local food revolution was, supermarkets pulling food from within a 30-mile radius, which for Cornwall, that's mainly sea. So I hadn't seen many floating supermarkets. So I knew we were going to be out of county fairly quickly. So to be able to make the business a viable one. So we thought being line accredited would be important to be able to supply supermarkets further afield as well. And to the day, we're still the only line accredited packing centre now, actually, in the southwest. That was probably luck more than knowledge.
Well, we all need a bit of luck as well, but I'm sure it's a little bit more than that. I want to put a pause button on talking about the business. We will come back to it, but I want to go down the rabbit hole of talking about your career with the pub trade before, because actually, when you think about it, I can't think of a better grounding actually for going back. They do say, don't they? If you can run a pub, you can run anything. So
Yeah.
if you're running multiple pubs, I imagine that must help a lot. Tell me a little bit about that side of your career.
I don't know if you could crown it a career.
Well, it's quite a
more
long
of an
time.
experience. Yes, I think it's certainly it's a service industry, and like farming, it's extremely hard work, and
Yeah.
the customer is always right, and you are there to make that customer have the best experience, and that takes an awful lot of effort. And I think it was yes, it has been incredibly useful, and being able to communicate with such a variety of people, you learn how to
Yeah.
do that. And you can also learn how to have 2 or 3 conversations with several different people and still watching another conversation over in the corner, or you're gauging that someone needs water on their table, or they've finished their food, or you've got all of that going on around you, and you're kind of naturally tuning in to those sorts of situations. And I think that stands you in good stead for certainly the business that we've created now. It's been very useful.
Yeah, fascinating. Um, let's bring us sort of right up to date with the business. But I mean, reflecting back, what do you think has been the secret to the success of your growth? Because actually, if you look at it, take that long view, if you go right the way back to when the cows were sold in 2002, which triggered this change in direction, and then you look back at those 20 odd years, 22 odd years, you look at those growth stages, you've done it in a way that actually looking back feels quite, certainly from an outsider point of view, it feels quite logical. But you have almost you have seen that enormous growth really, from an idea to what it is today. So what do you think the secret of that success has been?
I don't think it's a secret. I think for us and our family, we had I haven't really spoken about it very much, but the biggest turning point I think for our family, sorry,
No, it's
was
fine.
was losing my brother in 2001.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And that I think that kind of reset everything and kind of made you realize how important people are. Excuse me. So I think it's people that have made our business what it is today. Because without the amazing people, that's what creates the ethos of and the values in our business are driven around people. So that is very, very important. And I think also understanding your weaknesses as well. It's kind of having that balance of the right people around you. So yeah, I think it's people.
Let's sort of turn again back to today, and look at the egg sector as a whole, because in many ways you've seen the growth and you've seen the shift, and you've almost sort of followed this trajectory as eggs itself has shifted over the past 20 years. So I'm interested in your perspective of that as your business sort of reflected as part of the wider industry over that contextual period.
Yes, I think the egg sector has changed a lot. I think the power of a brand is very important, but also not so much just the brand. It's the communicating the health and nutrition that food can give you. Specifically, an egg, there are amazing bombs of nutrition, and we actually within the UK we've got one of the lowest egg consumptions in the world, which for a first world very developed country is a little bit concerning. That real clean natural food is being left on the shelf.
Yeah, it's a
And
classic story.
yeah, so it is a real concern, and I think it's probably a challenge for the sector to really drive home how health you are what you eat, and you're back to that. And I think that the egg sector has changed over. There have been obviously back in 1988 with the Salmonella scare and Edwina Currie really undermining the trust in homegrown food. Again, the opportunity that came out of that was to create the British Red Lion, which was really kind of heroing the egg and showing how safe it was, and now today we've now got the Food Standards Authority who have authorized eggs are fine to safe and safe to eat runny, which back in the 80s was unheard of. But the British Red Lion has done a lot of work around food safety and salmonella testing, and it's virtually non-existent in the UK now.
Absolutely.
And eggs are extremely safe. But they're make sure it's got a British Red Lion stamp on it. I think that's really been the major shift in the egg sector over the last 20 odd years would be the safety message. But we just need to get more people eating eggs because they are so incredibly healthy for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? You hear the similar story in dairy as a whole food. You hear, it's about messaging, isn't it? But it's really interesting that you talk about the Edwina Currie moment, because it was a moment, wasn't it? And actually,
Yes.
again, if we look back historically, it's easy to forget, but these moments actually have an enormous impact on the way that things go forward. And in many ways, we're still living with the consequences of that today. The other big shift, of course, and this is sector wide, really. This is industry wide, but it is sustainability. It's that great buzzword, which again has been with us for a long time, but it seems to have shifted and become even more important in terms of focus today. So, what does that aspect of the industry mean for you as a business?
Sustainability, I think it comes in many different guises, doesn't it? But ultimately, the first and foremost is the sustainability of a farmer. It is that farmer in a great frame of mind to be able to do a great job, and and that's from mental health to financial health and family health, and individual health. So I think that's where sustainability starts. Before we start about talking about soil health and carbon sequestration, it's starting with the farmer, and more needs to be done around that, because actually all farmers know how to farm and know how about soil health. I think recently we've got a lot more the availability of testing soil and more understanding and knowledge around that is growing, which is great. But farmers know how to look after. They're custodians of the land. 9 times out of 10, they've learnt it from their parents or grandparents. And new farmers today are, new people into farming today are probably more genned up on soil health than some of the old school farmers. But they will probably know, the old school farmers will know their land better because they've been there a long time. So
Yeah,
I think sustainability for farming comes in many guises.
And that is a perfect plug, actually, listeners. If you aren't already subscribed to the Farming Focus podcast, you can hear Rebecca and Tom Tolpert on the latest series, so Series 3, Episode 10. So after you've listened to this one, you can add that to your listening list as well. The next thing I want to talk about is innovation. And this is something that I think you have embraced in such a big way as the business has changed and grown, and you've always been looking for that next opportunity. And again, I sort of want to bring that back to your team as well. And you've been saying that people is really key to your success as a business as well. And for me, these almost come hand in hand, don't they? Because you have to be open as a team to embracing this as well. So actually, so in some ways, my question is more about how you've brought people along with the ideas and with the ideas for growth, but with the ideas for changing what you're doing as well. How do you ensure that your team remains really sort of focused on that next stage and keeps morale up?
I think there's a certain level of enthusiasm that drives that innovation as well. We've very much focused on nutrition, so our innovation is driven around different feed for the hens to produce different types of eggs. It's not rocket science; it's pretty basic, but it works, and the hens are extremely well and healthy, and the eggs are considerably different. So I think with a consumer that eats with their eyes and a farmer that can be able to order a different grade of feed for a flock on a rich yolk diet over a super egg diet, it's a fairly straightforward process, really. But taking that further, running trials, we've got a flock of hens at the moment at home. We're just running trials with different types of feed and so on for them. I like to do that at home first before we ask our producer farmers to do it, so we've kind of got the t-shirt and gone through that experience. So I think that's quite important, to be thorough with innovation and not and not so you can be. It also helps you be able to in marketing that product as well, because you've been really on the kind of cold face of
Yeah.
the whole process, and that's really important. But now we're kind of at the stage of developing it a little bit further. So we've been pasteurizing for a number of years now. We've actually stopped pasteurizing for a moment, and we're putting in another pasteurizer, which is a bit more fit for purpose. But the capabilities and innovation around that is extraordinary, and really excited about our next phase. So watch this space.
Yeah. Do you think in terms of future, because you've got to where you are now, but in many ways, I'm guessing you are always looking to a next stage. So
Yeah.
does the future is the future sort of growth in terms of numbers, or is it added value in some way? Where do you see things going?
I think it's both. Added value is great fun, and
Yeah.
that's how I view it. And I think our core business of egg packing, we just need to get better and more efficient at it. We've got lots more improvements to make, and although we've been doing this for nearly 19 years now, I feel that we've only just started. So it's yes, lots more to do. I mean, equipment upgrades. We've got a new ERP system that should be live next month, to kind of really help the business run smoothly. We've just installed a second grader, so we've our capacity's grown, but it also means that we can run nicer shift patterns for our team, and makes us more resilient if we have breakdowns and those kind of things. But also the level of technology within those machines is better. We're putting on better egg inspectors, so we're packing better quality eggs, and just being more thorough, really. So there's loads and loads of areas that we're improving on all the time. But so I think technology is very much part of that journey as well.
Okay. And in terms of the marketing side, growing your market, where are most of your eggs going at the moment, and how do you look to new markets?
We've always tried to be around 50-50 retail to hospitality, but we're probably nearer 60-40 with regards to that balance at the moment, for favouring retail, because we're supplying Tesco's. We're very lucky. We were ranged nationally within Tesco's last year, and that's really kind of propelled our growth. And we also supply a number of other amazing supermarkets as well. And there are shop windows, so it's really important to work closely with the supermarkets and make sure that you're doing your best you can, fulfilling orders, getting there in a timely manner, and supporting with new ideas and promotions, and it's keeping that enthusiasm around the egg shelf as well, for shoppers. We've probably got quite a lot more growth in our hospitality side of things.
Okay.
I think the hospitality sector, having worked in it for a number of years as
Yeah,
well,
please.
it's it's had a really tough time through COVID. There's a very long journey of recovery, and we would like to try and support in as many ways as possible on that journey. But it's really helping the chefs and educating chefs to be able to really kind of share that value of food, the beautiful British produce that are on many amazing menus across the UK. It's really helping them reinforce the story behind the food and the journey and the art that the chef is creating in the kitchen with this produce. That's the bit we would like to do more in that area.
Yeah. How was COVID for you? Because, of course, talking of hospitality, which collapsed, any sector that is feeding into that had issues of adaptation at the same time.
We were about 50-50 back then with retail and food service sales. So we had a huge number of eggs sitting there with no home.
Yeah.
So we actually started a campaign called Shell Out to Help Out, a little bit on the back of Eat Out to Help Out. We didn't borrow that at all. But basically what we did, because our guys were kind of, nobody had anything to do at the weekends. So we all kind of contributed our time. And our drivers came in and we took lorry loads of eggs out to various different rugby clubs and set up drive-through egg sales, COVID-friendly drive-through egg sales. And we were selling a tray of eggs, and every tray of eggs we sold, we donated a carton of 6 to the food banks.
Right.
And we sold all the eggs. And
wow.
We had, just to give you an idea, the start of COVID, when it happened, we had 117 pallets, that's 720 dozens of pallets of eggs in our yard. With, we were literally putting them everywhere to get them under cover. So we knew we had to act quickly, and they've got a date on them as well. So we needed to move them. And yeah, so that's how we operated from January through to March. And we had an amazing response. People were using a phenomenal amount of eggs and baking beautiful dishes, which they were sharing on our Facebook page. It was a great experience, and lots of people still ask today, "Oh, are you still doing a Shell Out to Help Out?" And but
it was
brilliant
such
fun.
a bizarre time, wasn't it?
Yeah,
but out of all the negativity and all the horror stories, there were. I mean, this is a great example of one of the of something that was so positive and so innovative, and like you say, people really got behind all those things.
yeah. We had queues 3-4 miles long of cars waiting to come in to the rugby clubs and lay-bys where we were selling eggs. So it was that nobody had anything to do. So it was wild, but it was
Let's go and get
fun.
some eggs.
Yeah.
Make an event of it.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to talk about, which I'm sort of a bit of a stuck record on this show with, but it is recruiting people into the industry.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the egg sector from your point of view and for your business.
Mm-hmm.
How tough is it out there at the moment?
I think there's different parts of the egg sector. So I think within our business and packing eggs and that side of it, we're very lucky. We've got a wonderful group of people, and that kind of in turn attracts more people. So we've got a really lovely vibe here at the packing centre. But I think the farming side of the business is tough. It's an area I think all farmers always struggle with is finding egg collectors and teams to help with depop. I mean, the young farmers are great because they all get together and help out each other when on depops and restocks. But it's not the glamorous side of farming, and I think, and it's also blimmin' hard work, and it's
Yeah.
365 days of the year. So it's making the core feel really important and special, because it
Yeah.
is, and then attracting more people to that. But you get stuck in and you do it yourself, and then people think actually it's okay, because the boss is doing this or whatever. That's really important. There's farming where you've got lovely family farms, which we work mainly with family farms. And then there's executive farmers.
Yeah.
And that's
Yes.
a different story altogether. And I think that's the area that hasn't got that lovely kind of emotion in and investment, emotional investment in the farming side of things. So that's what's so lovely about farms in the UK, is a lot of them are family farms, and it's that absolute nurture that they bring to the farming process and farming cycle, that is very special.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk at the moment, and I suppose there has been since the agricultural transition started,
Mm,
of how we ensure how we ensure the future of those family farms. Because, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, certainly the last 18 months, sector wide, has been incredibly tough,
yeah.
and as support, there are obviously there are schemes available that people are tapping into, but how you take yourself through the multiplicity of issues that there are at the moment, and
Mm.
ensure the survival of those family farms is tough. So I suppose my question is, do you think that governments are doing enough on a policy level? Not getting political with this current government, although we can do if you want to, in order to actually have a policy framework that ensures that those family farms have a future.
Well, the government doesn't have a food policy right now, so I think it's our duty as the farming network, and that we actually educate and help government understand what is so important, because they don't know. And I think, or there might be very few people within the government that do know, but collaboratively, we've got a stronger voice to help guide government. And that all government has to do is listen and take on board what is important. What's very difficult, I think, is farming is it's been around for a very long time, and if you've not been brought up within that sector, you don't perhaps understand, because the you can't see it, you feel it.
Yeah,
That very special nurture that family farms bring to the table, and this is the golden chalice that we must be very careful not to run dry. This is what is so special about our food system in the UK, and all the knowledge of farming that goes with that as well. And it's trying to explain that to people who have perhaps not run a business before, people who've not been brought up in a rural area. We're at a real danger point of policy being made with a real lack of understanding, and it's nobody's fault. It's just how evolution has happened. But I think government needs to be curious, and they need to listen. And yeah, I think that's probably all I can say on that for a moment.
no, I think that's really well described, actually. I particularly like that sense of feeling that you brought out. Several weeks back, we had Patrick Holden, who farms in southwest Wales, on the show, and through the Sustainable Food Trust that he leads, they're starting a campaign of beacon farms, and the whole idea of this, and it's something that I am so passionate about is getting people onto farm, and especially policymakers, but anyone really, because when you see it and you feel it and you're there and you know that, and it's easy. I think farmers, especially when you meet a farmer on their farm, which is partly why the first 100 or so episodes of this. I recorded them all on farm. I'm hoping to do more in future. But farmers really come to life on their farm, and you can see that passion, you see that understanding, and you feel that sense of understanding
Yeah.
as well. And that I just feel we are so far away from that point
Yes.
still, despite all the fantastic work that people like Leaf are doing with Open Farm Sunday and individual farms are doing as well.
Mhm.
It still feels that we still need to move further towards getting more people engaged.
Yes. Yeah, I quite agree. And we've just put the Great Southwest campaign has just put a food security paper forward, and we're at Westminster on Monday delivering that. And it was well attended by many MPs, but it's still, you can't put that feeling in a paper, you can't put that feeling on a spreadsheet. It's something that is, to quantify it in a business sense is very difficult, but it's there and it exists and it needs to be nurtured. And it would be very amazing if government were able to kind of prioritize listening and learning and understanding that part of farming that they can't see.
Big question here, but trying to distill it down to one. What, in your view, is the biggest challenge facing egg producers today?
There are probably two, actually, but first and foremost is, I think a couple of years ago I would have said avian influenza.
Yeah.
Today I would probably say planning. There's a lot of noise from, again, people who don't understand farming and perhaps not fully equipped with the right information around making decisions of planning applications. There is a lot of concern around pollution and noise and smell. And today's poultry units are for a standard size poultry unit is a 32,000 bird unit.
Yeah.
And that investment for a farmer is about £2.2 million. And that is a huge investment for a farm. And you're looking, I don't know, 15 years payback to 20 years payback. And it's a lot of that's a lot of long-term commitment for a farmer. But what the farmer is investing in is the future. It's a very environmentally friendly unit. It's got humidity, airflow, temperature, water regulation, feed regulation. It's so advanced and can be run with and collect a lot of data, can be run from your mobile phone. It's a really, it's probably more well equipped than many hospitals in the UK today. And that is the welfare standard that poultry and poultry farmers are investing in today. Manure is removed 2 times a week by conveyor belts into a dry store, so there is no runoff. And I just think there's been a lot of noise and negativity around planning applications wrongly, because it's not been investigated well enough from a planning perspective. And I think we just need to. We're currently going through the motions of putting in a planning application for a 32,000 bird unit here in Cornwall. We're hoping to blog every kind of stage, because I would really like to be able to educate the planning department and the local people around what it is we're doing. We're not. It's not a very intrusive form of farming. It's not very noisy. It's not very smelly. And it's actually quite nice to see the hens out in the field. So so I think planning is probably the biggest challenge of all.
We're going to start to round things up, but before we do, just a plug for your website and stuff. How can listeners find out more about your business?
Oh gosh, we're just in the process of upgrading our website, actually. So, but you're very welcome to have a look at the rusty old version. At stueggs.com. Yes, and we've got we produce a newsletter each month for our teams, and it tells you about our values as a business. So we only have 4 values, but they're pretty important to us, and that's how we recruit people actually. So we're very bold, we're very transparent, open, we nurture, and we're quite a positive crew. So yeah, so that's a little bit about our tribe in Cornwall.
Well, I would say that those 4 values have sung true today. So yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming on the show. Before we go, I'm going to ask you the 2 questions that I ask everyone when they come on the show. The first is, if you had a message for the public, any message at all, what would it be?
I would ask the general public to be more curious, ask more questions, and that's it.
Nice, like that. And your message to farmers?
Don't forget you're just human. And being bold and just enjoying what you do, and just remembering to live life. Don't get too tangled up in the day-to-day, because you remember you've got a family, remember you're human, and enjoy your hobbies and stuff as well. You know, they're all very special individuals, and you need to remember that.
Fantastic. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on Meet the Farmers. That's been an absolute pleasure. And just hearing your story of how the business has changed, your family story as well. I'm really, really appreciative of you for coming on and telling us about it. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
That is it for today. A big thank you to my guest, Rebecca Tonks, for coming on the show, and thank you for listening. I should say that this episode was recorded before the budget, and obviously before the rally in London and the NFU meetings at Westminster, which are happening tomorrow, Tuesday the 19th of November. I, along with hundreds of others, will be in London, and next week's episode will be about the rally and the farmer protest. I'm hoping to speak with lots of people there to see what their experiences are. Several farmers will also be sending me audio diary entries of their experiences, and so we'll have some of those for you to hear alongside my experience of the day. The other thing to say is that on Friday and Saturday this week, I will be at the Land Alive event in Somerset, a new regenerative farming event which looks really exciting. So please get tickets for that if you haven't already. Head to landalive.co.uk and let me know if you're going along. I hope you have a good week this week. That's it for now. I'm Ben Eagle. This has been Meet the Farmers, and thank you very much for listening. Meet the Farmers is brought to you by RuralPod Media, the only podcast production agency to specialise in the rural sector. We're on a mission to make rural stories mainstream and help businesses, organisations and communities like you tell your story through podcasting. Podcasting is a fantastic way of connecting with your audience, whoever that might be, getting your message out there and networking with leaders in your niche. RuralPod Media can help you by launching your new podcast or helping you with the technical side. We also provide podcast training and an audit service if you already have a podcast, you're not sure where to take it to next. For more information or to book a call, visit ruralpodmedia.co.uk. That's ruralpodmedia.co.uk.